Exactly. So this is called an if-then statement. But in math, for some reason, they make it way more complicated and they're going to use P's and Q's and symbols and all this weird stuff. It just basically means if this is true, then this is true. But then we're going to have a whole bunch of variables that change. And by variables, I mean just things we change. So that will be the most complex part, is going to be memorizing it, because you don't get notes on the quiz, and there's no process for this, there's no calculations. You're just going to have to remember how to keep different vocabulary clear. And then I think if you remember how to keep them separated, doing it's actually not that bad. The hard part is just remembering which thing means what, So in this, again, if it rains, then soccer practice is canceled. Well, if soccer practice is canceled, then Maria can go to the mall. So it is raining, which means Maria can go to the mall. So the point is, we used one part of the original statement, the hypothesis is what that part is called, but then we used the conclusion from a different statement to make our overall conclusion that yes, Maria can go to the mall. If you remember this from algebra, it's actually an algebraic property. If A equals B and B equals C, what can we say is true? A equals C. If this is the same thing as that, then I could basically say, okay, well, if A and B are the same, then I could replace B with A, because it's the same thing as B. They're equal. So that means A also equals C. I think it was called the transitive property, maybe. I believe. All right. So you should have all torn those pages out. So we're just going to go through these pages. Oh, shoot. Come up and grab one of these. Actually, tell you what, just stay there. I'm going to start the. Oh, no. I don't have enough of these. Son of a gun. I may have to make copies of that if Miss Thompson comes in. So for now, then I guess just take. So take one of those if you have extras. Either look for somebody around you that might need one, or just put the extras on an empty desk. You guys don't come back. There, hopefully that's enough. Felt like maybe. Wait a minute. Dude, I can't believe I don't have more of these. Do you have one? All right, so I found this is actually supposed to be an activity where you fill everything in, but I just gave you the answer key to it. I figured that would take less time, and we're going to go over the book pages anyway. So some of the book stuff will be on that. You have the book pages anyway, so you can just take notes in your book pages. I'll kind of point out the stuff that you may want to like kind of highlight and take some notes around what I think is going to be the most important stuff. But let's go ahead and go to the book. All right, so page, son of a gun, why did it? Pretty sure that's not gonna work. All right, hold on. Apparently everything timed out. That might be because I lost connection, actually. Yeah. There we go. Geometry. That should take us right where we were, I hope. There we go. All right, so this is your first page of what you tore out. So a truth, actually here, I'll show the definition to you. So a statement is just a sentence that is either true or false. But just because you make a statement doesn't mean it's true. So you're going to see some of the statements, and this will be one of the confusing parts. Some of the statements they give you, you're going to read it and you're going to be like, that doesn't make any sense. That's okay. A statement that they give you can be a false statement. So just understand the statement they give you might be false, might be true. Then you're going to do some things that may change the statement and change whether or not that new statement is true or false. The truth value is just a way of saying, well, is it a true statement or is it a false statement? So if they ask you for the truth value, you're just going to say either true or false, whichever one the statement is. If it's true, you'll say true. False, you'll say false. That's the truth value. They're going to use this. Hate writing it on here because then I have to always erase it. So that's going to be the variables they use for different parts of the statements. P might be its own statement all on its own. It might be part of a statement that's a conditional statement. Q might be its own statement all on its own, or it might be part of the statement that's normally the ending part of the statement, which we'll see in a minute when we get to that. Here is the tricky stuff right here. Whoop. Oh man, my board is so far off. I don't even know if I can get it. All right, so you have to learn a lot of notation. Some of this is on the sheet I gave you. Like if you look at the bottom, it has the little symbol right here. If you look at the top, it says what negate means. Actually, it has negation and negate. So it kind of has both of them. I'm going to explain it in my words. So if you want to write some notes around these things, that's up to you. If you think you can understand what they're saying, which I will tell you right now, it's a little weird, so you may want to write some notes. So negation of a statement or negating a statement. Got a. Paying attention to these. You guys, I would be so mad if you're doing this and you ask me some of these same questions. And this is a lot of vocabulary. Negating a statement. So again, they're going to give you a statement, and they'll might be the letter P that they give you. Sometimes P, Q, R, those are the letters they use. If they say negate that statement, then you're going to change the statement using the word not. I'm going to give you an example in a minute. That's what this means. They may say negate the statement. They may say what statement is, like what is the not P statement? They may just say this. They say rewrite a new statement and just give you that, just that symbol in the letter P. It all means the same thing. Negate the statement, not P, or this symbol in P, all means the same statement. You're going to change the statement around, and you're kind of changing it to the opposite statement that we're doing. You're going to put the word not in there. So, and again, the original statement may be true, it may not be true. That's not the point. The point is you know how to change the original statement. So there's a girl that's a football player, not that really matters, but she's not one of my students. So if I say Olivia is in my class, or Olivia is one of my students, that's a statement. It's not true, but it's still a statement. That's the statement that I'm giving you. Now, if I said negate that statement, or if I said just this, or if I said give me a statement that is not P, not P, so I don't even know how they use that. We'll see in the example. Normally, they'll either say negate the statement or they'll say this. I need to change that by putting the word not in it and making it the opposite statement. What would the opposite statement be? Yes. Olivia is in my class. I need to change it to the opposite by using the word not. That's it. Olivia is not in my class would be the negation of that statement, or it would be the not P statement. You just take the original statement. Now it gets tougher than that. I think it's always that easy. You'll see one. Well, if I make more copies, you'll see one. Actually, I'll show it to you up on the board in a minute. You'll see one that's a little trickier, but think of it as the opposite statement and try to use the word not. Sometimes using the word not doesn't make sense. You got to change it in a different way. All right, so I'll erase that in a minute. Next, two or more statements joined by either the word and or the word or form a compound statement. Again, I'm not super worried about you knowing the definition behind that, but you do need to understand what they mean and how to determine whether or not they're true. That's the important part. So if it is the word and, so if this compound statement uses the word and, it's called a conjunction. If you've ever like used that word in other ways, conjunction means you're kind of taking two things and making them one. It's really one statement, and they both got to be true. That's the key part. Actually, all of this is the key part. Those are the two ways you'll see them ask you, like, is this a true compound statement? They'll just say P and Q, and you have to tell them, is that a true statement? If it's true, then they both have to be true. And I'll give you an example. Let me give you a statement again. This doesn't have to be a true statement. Let me give you one that is true right now. I'm going to say Timothy and Waldemar are my student. So Timothy, or I should really say it, Timothy is my student and Waldemar is my student. It's an and statement. But in order for that statement to be true, both pieces have to be true, which in this case they're both my students. If even one of them is false, so let's say I said Timothy and Olivia are my students. That is a false statement because Timothy is, but Olivia is not. So if only one of them is not true for an and statement, only one of them is not true, then the whole thing is not true. And or is the opposite of that. My word gets off so far fast. If it says or, and if I say Timothy is one of my students or Olivia is one of my students, only one of those two things has to be true for the whole statement to be true. So that would be a true statement because Timothy is one, even though Olivia is not. Now here's the trickier part. I think that's kind of a logical thing. I think hopefully you can understand that for an and statement, they both have to be true. For an or statement, only one. If not, you need to, or you'll practice that. This is the part that you need to get straight. Sometimes they'll just say P and Q, and you should know, well, that means they both have to be true. It's an and statement. Sometimes, though, they're going to give you this. And you have to know that means P and Q. Same way down here. Sometimes they're just going to tell you either P or Q is fine. P or Q is what we're determining whether or not that's true. But sometimes they're just going to give you this, and you have to know that's an or statement. So my question is, how are you going to keep the symbol for and different or separate or understand which one is and, which one is or? Who has an idea that we can all use? What do you think? Good. You could just say, well, I know and goes up, or goes down, like you're talking about the vertex, like it's pointing. What do you have? That's what I do. I say, well, you know what? If I have this guy right here, and if I did that, put it in the right spot for me. Boy. Oh, here, I'll do it on the computer. Oh, I can't do it on the computer. Not in the other. All right, hopefully you get the point. That's supposed to look like an A. I was trying to put a for a capital A. That symbol, you can make a capital A out of it by just drawing a line like kind of through the middle, like you would a capital A. That's how I remember it saying. I can turn that into a capital A, which means that's the symbol for and. This I can't. That can't turn into an A. So that's why I do it. If you have another way you want, I don't remember anything about this. Like I don't have any trick to remember that's or. I just know if that's and, that has to be or. So you do have to remember what they're for, but normally they would tell you anyway what kind of a question they're asking. So if you have a different way, that's fine. Somehow though, because I think it's probably more common that you get the notation in a problem as opposed to them using the word and or the word or. You need to understand that notation. Any questions on any of that before we go on to kind of a couple of examples? I think we're in examples now. Yeah, so here we go. These are in your book. All your pages. Get this board. So look at that example. I want you to try to answer. I want you to try to answer the question they give you on your own. Oh, give me the answers. I'm assuming that. Oh. So they give you a statement. You are evaluating what is the truth validity. What's the word? You're evaluating that statement to say whether or not that is a true statement. So I want you guys to try to fill in the blanks real quick. Actually, do the next two. You should be able to do the next one where they have that weird symbol in there. The not symbol is in there. When they kind of give you the answer. They create the statement for you. Give you another minute. Like I said, the statements they give you initially don't have to be true, like the first one, for example. What's that? Should be on whatever page I'm on. They should match up. Yeah, first page still. 135. Is it not on there? Could be example. Yeah, example 1. Bottom of 135. So again, this one of the statements they gave you is not a true statement. Don't get confused by the fact that they're telling you something that's not true. That's not the point. The point is to later evaluate whatever they ask you to evaluate. All right, so the statements they have given us are these 3 statements. And this is not a compound statement. They just gave us 3 individual statements. They're not saying if something, then something. Just gave us 3 statements. What they are then asking us to do is to evaluate compound statements down below. So they are saying P and R. What does that mean? Means both of them. So the way you test this is your process every single time. You just individually say, is this first statement true? Is P true? Then individually you say, is R true? And you say yes or no or whatever to each one. For an and statement to be true, the whole statement to be true, what has to happen? They both have to be true. So if you said, yes, that's true, and yes, that's true, then the whole statement is true. So individually is P true, just P. You know what pentagon is? I hope you know what that shape is, even if you don't know what a pentagon is. Learned so much in it. What? Are you serious? Nobody has mentioned that all day long. That is too funny. I mean, it's still the same answer, but huh, that's funny. We will treat it like it's the Pentagon then. I've done that with every, not that it matters, I guess, across class, but I'd rather, since there's a video now watching it. So for the people watching the video, apparently in the book pages, which you may or may not have, it says trapezoid. We'll just do this one. So ignore, we'll just do this one together up on the screen. You can, not a trapezoid for sure, so I guess you can still do it there. So is P true then? We'll say Pentagon, trapezoid, it really doesn't matter. It's not, right? So that one immediately is not true. How does nobody mention that? All I did that in two. I did that in fifth period. Maybe I just got to it before, but still nobody mentioned it. If it's a true or if it's an and statement, what did we say has to be true? Or what's like both, right? We really don't even have to evaluate the second. We've already got one that's wrong. So if one's wrong already, we don't even need to look at R. We could say, and that's what these answers are down here. It says because P is false, P and R is false already. We don't need to even evaluate R. That's why they don't mention R in this first part, because it only takes one of them to be wrong, and this is wrong. P is not, it's not a pentagon or a trapezoid, if that's what you guys have. So right now, after the very first statement of P being false, we could say, yeah, so therefore the whole thing is false. We're done with that one already. Let's go to the next one. Now we have to be able to write, and they did the hard part for you, really. But I do want you to try to figure out how to say this statement here. What is this called? The little squiggly line and a P. What is that called? Not P. So we need to somehow take the statement that they gave us for P, and we need to sort of be able to create an opposite statement. And normally you'll have the word not in it, like almost all the time. There's one that we will do in a minute where you won't have it. How would we say that statement and put the word not in it and make it the opposite statement? Let's see, who am I going to call on for that? I guess I'll just keep going kind of in order. Wall, did I already call you? Well, tell me, how can I change? So the statement for P, we can say the figure is a trapezoid, the figure is a pentagon, it doesn't change. How we would change it? How would we make that an opposite statement using the word not? Figure is a trapezoid. We use this. How do I change that around and make it a not statement? Yeah, that's it. You put the word not. If you have the word is in there, a lot of times it's going to go right after the is. So it already has the answer there. So if you saw that and you didn't really try to do it on your own, you need to try to turn these statements around because they're going to get more confusing. I would just say the figure is not, for you, a trapezoid, for me, a pentagon. The second statement is just the statement they give us then. Oh, so is the not statement true or false? The figure is not a trapezoid. True, right? It's not a trapezoid, so it's a true statement. So we would make a check mark for that one. That is a true statement there. How about Q? Is Q a true statement? Q is just the same one they gave you. Is true a Q statement, or Q true a Q? Is Q a true statement? Yes, Maya. It is, right? Says it's got, what is it? Is it the four congruent side ones? Is that what Q is? Yeah, it tells you in the figure with a little mark that all of the sides are congruent. So that is also a true statement. What is the symbol in between asking us to evaluate? What kind of statement? It's an and statement because I could turn this into an A, right? I could make that symbol into an A, which means it's an and statement. In order for an and statement to be true, they both have to be true. They are both true, so we're good to go. That whole compound statement is a true statement because each individual statement was true. Is that the last one, I think, on that page? All right, so let's go to the next page. I totally skipped over doing a review of counterexample. I got to come back to that counterexample and conjecture. All right, so look at the figure they gave you. Oh no, God dang it. Hate the word. So look at the figure they give you and then the statements. The first two statements are not true statements. So you got to get used to that. Don't read a statement and go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Those are, oh, what does complementary mean? Complementary mean? You did a whole section on this. Means they add up to, that's supplementary. 90. So they're telling you angle ABC and angle CBD are complementary. That should mean they add up to 90. Well, clearly they don't. I mean, I hope it's clear. This angle plus this big, huge angle don't add up to 90. They actually do add up to 180. So again, they're also not vertical angles. Even though it's telling you they are vertical angles, they're not vertical angles. Just remember, the statement they give you might be false. Don't freak out when you see a statement and it's not true. It doesn't match up with a figure. All right, so with that in mind, now we're just going to evaluate whatever they ask us to evaluate. I think I can make this to zoom. Yeah, I'm going to have to leave the. All right, so it says evaluate P or not R. So either one of them can be true, what an or statement means, and then the whole statement is true. So that's what we're evaluating, this whole statement. Is P true? P is not true, so we'd say no, that one's not true. But remember, we only need one to be true. What is the not R statement? How would we flip around? Oh, what does this mean? What is this even saying? We did it, but we didn't spend a lot of time on that symbol in between. What's that symbol in between AB and BD mean? It means congruent. It means congruent. So it's saying AB is congruent. What does congruent mean? Same measure, good. So if it's a line, which these are line segments, that means they're the same length. So it's saying AB is the same length as BD. Is that a true statement the way it is? Look at the figure. Figure tells you with the markings whether or not that's true or false. Is that true? Alexa, is R the way they gave it to us, just like this? Is that a true statement? Is AB the same measure? It is, right? They gave us the one little hash mark. That's what we said. If they both had the same number of little hash marks, I guess I can go up. That little pink, I guess, pink, purplish, that is saying this segment is the same length as that segment. So that is a true statement. But we need to change it to a not statement. So what's the not statement going to be? I'll just stick with Thursday. You need to be paying attention. So I'm going to call on you next. So I won't call on you right now. But so Brandy, what would the not statement be? This R statement. That's the R statement. How would I change that to a not R statement? Yeah, it's just you throw the word. I told you if there's the word is in there, that's your first thing I would try. Does it make sense if I say AB is not congruent to BD? Well, yeah, that totally makes sense. That's the opposite statement. So my and they've already got them written down for you. If you haven't noticed, they're giving you the answers pretty much. So that statement is that AB is not congruent to BD. Is that true or false? It's false, right? Because they told us they are congruent, right? Oh, I'm sorry, it didn't tell us, but in the picture, they are congruent. So if that is not true, is the overall statement true or false? The or statement, the compound statement. Yeah, they're both false, so the overall statement is false. That's the only way the overall statement is false in an or statement. They have to both be false. So it's going to get confusing as to, well, wait a minute, they're giving me a picture, but then they're giving me these statements, and then they're giving me the not still. Like, what am I figuring out here? That's going to be the thing that you're going to have to, when you practice, just the more of them you see, the more you're going to start to understand which piece you're answering. The way you evaluate whether or not the statement is true is by using the figure, right? These statements that they're giving you aren't like, you don't evaluate them against each other. I don't evaluate this based on seeing that because I've changed it. I evaluate all of these things based on the original image or whatever they give you in the beginning. And again, and then just practice. I think there's another one below that, right? Meaning to. Oh. There's one more maybe. Oh, so conditional statement is the if then that we talked about. The part in front of, I'm sorry, the part right after the if is called the hypothesis. That's the letter P. P is always the hypothesis. The part after the then is the letter Q, or it's the conclusion. So when we did the bell work, if it rains, so the if it rains part's the hypothesis, then soccer practice is canceled. That's the conclusion. Soccer practice being canceled is the conclusion. So if statement is the P value, it's the hypothesis. The then statement is the conclusion. And let's see. Oh, this is how they say that. This means if P, then Q. So I think they have all of this on the sheet that I gave you, like this sheet here. Yeah, meaning if something, then something. That's what the arrow means. Typically, P is always going to be the first value. If P, then Q. Conditional statement is if then. We did that. Hypothesis, we just did that. Conclusion, we did negation, negate. Okay, so now we're getting into this. This is the next part, which is definitely going to be a little confusing. So if P, then Q would be an example like this. If it rains, then the parade will be canceled. They have all these other things, inverse, converse, and then contrapositive, that kind of rearrange this original statement. You have to be able to keep these straight. There's no, unlike the and or the or, where the symbol you can change it to an A, and that's kind of an easy thing to remember. You're just going to have to remember how these go. There's three of them really that you have to remember. Converse is the first one. The converse statement means you're flipping the P and the Q. So the example here, just like in your book, so instead of if it rains, it's if the parade is canceled. So the conclusion now becomes the hypothesis, basically. And the hypothesis now becomes a conclusion. So if the parade is canceled, then it has rained. We just flip the hypothesis and the conclusion. May or may not be true. So just because we flip it doesn't mean it's true. The original one not necessarily true. That's what they're going to ask you to evaluate. They would say, is the converse true? And you would have to know that means I flip it and then I determine whether or not that is true. Inverse is even a little weirder. Inverse, we don't flip the hypothesis and the conclusion. We still have P first and then Q, but we make them both not statements. And this is the one, well, I mean, they give you the answer really, so there's not a whole lot of. So if it does not rain, then the parade will not be canceled. Again, may or may not be true. Again, maybe it gets canceled for other reasons. So just because it doesn't rain doesn't mean that the parade won't be canceled. Like, we don't know. Maybe COVID hits and they cancel everything. It's again. So the last one you got to keep, but just remember, inverse, you change them both to not, but you don't flip them. Change the order. And then finally, contrapositive, you do everything. You change the order, so now the P and the Q are flipped, and you're also making them the not statement. So the final one, if the parade is not canceled, so originally that was the conclusion, now it's the hypothesis, and we've changed it to not. Originally, the raining was the hypothesis, now it's the conclusion, but we've also changed it to not. So those are the three that are going to be the trickiest ones to keep straight. I think you can get the and or the or statements, the little symbol, just by thinking about making an A out of the symbol if it's an and statement. These three, though, you just got to memorize those. So let's do that. So I'm going to just show you because I don't unfortunately have enough copies. I did. I think they're still sitting in the copy room. We'll do this as a group, which is fine because you're going to practice anyway. So. Oh, where is that one? Here. Oh, I was just in it. This is it? Yeah. All right, so we're going to do these together. So I want you to read this statement. Actually, write this statement down. It's not that much to write. That's fine. So write that statement down. That's the conditional statement, the original statement. If I win, comma, then you don't lose. That's your original statement. I want you to try to write all of these things down except for the last one. We didn't do by conditional yet. But you should be able to do all the other. You have your notes, so use your notes. You have your book pages. If you're writing any notes around the pages. So you can just write number 1, hypothesis. Number 2, conclusion. Number 3, negate the hypothesis. Like just write those down and then try to do them. I'll give you, shouldn't take you more than 3 or 4 minutes to do that. And then we'll just go to IXL. I'll zoom in a little more. There. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7 things I think we should do. Some of them are super easy. Let's see, where's my attendance? Couple more minutes. So 30 more seconds, and then we'll go through it real fast, and we can start doing IXL. Oh, Victor, I kept your. Wait, no, that's not Victor. That's it. Get through these real quick. I wasn't holding anybody else with that. All right. So hypothesis and conclusion. Everybody better be able to get that. I'm gonna call on Sergey. I told you I was coming back to you. What's the actually you're gonna do both of them. What's the hypothesis and what's the conclusion? So you really don't write normally the if part. I think I was saying the if part because sometimes to me it doesn't make sense if I don't say it. Technically, the hypothesis is that I win. The conclusion then would be you don't lose. If you say the if and the then with it, I don't really care, but just to let you know, I'm guessing they probably won't use the if and the then when they do stuff, like if you're doing the district test or the IXL, maybe they'll still say the if. I don't know. All right, so now if I were to negate, what does negate mean? Yeah, the word not. The negate thing is when we put the word not in. What's going on? Ah, oh, finally. Good Lord. Hold on. Ah, just. So I want to negate the hypothesis. What in the world do I do? Negate the hypothesis. What's negate mean? Negate mean. You've already done it, girl. Jasmine, how do I negate the hypothesis? I'm coming to you for conclusion, so start looking at conclusion now. Yeah, we just put not. Negate means put the word not in there. Make it the opposite by use. So if you're not, like if you don't get that, I've said it multiple times, but nobody wrote it down. Just write negate means change it to the opposite by using the word not. That's what you should be writing down in your notes. So now what would the statement be? Say it again. Well, I do not win. So I win, I do not win. That's the opposite. There's your two options. So I would say I do not win. So how do I negate the conclusion? Again, negate still means put the word not in there, but change the conclusion to the opposite using the word not. This one's a little tough. If you don't know this one, I'll skip you and come back. Because this one is a little tricky. How do I negate this one? Does anybody think they have the right thing? Brandon, what do you have? Didn't know? What do you think? So in this one, it's a little weird to put the word not in because technically the word not's already in there, right? You do not lose. So if you were to put the word not in, you would write you do not lose. So that's weird, but again, you can also just think of it as the opposite. What's the opposite of you don't lose? You do lose. So in this case, you actually take the word not out, technically. I don't know why I wrote I. So sometimes you have to be a little creative. Just remember, think opposite. Try to put the word not in there, but if there's already the word not in there, then you got to kind of fix it. But it's the opposite. You do lose. Opposite's the main thing. And then normally you'll use the word not. So how do we do the converse? I'm going to come back to the tie on that. What does converse mean we do? Yeah, we just switched the P and the Q, the conclusion and the hypothesis. So what would we write? Perfect. So I would just say, okay, well, I'd take the conclusion, which is you don't lose. If you, I mean, once you've written this stuff up here, you're kind of just using what you've already done to fill the rest of these in. If you don't lose, then and again, we don't know if these are true or not yet. We don't have any information about what's going on to be able to say whether these are true or not. We're just creating different statements by changing stuff around. Inverse gets a little trickier. Stefan, what would I do for the inverse? So we don't flip them for this. It's still P first, Q second, but we have to do something else. What do we do? Are you answering this? All right. Let's, Stefan, did you do it? Then if you've done it, that's what we need to kind of get moving. So what do you have, Anthony? So we negate one of them for this. We don't negate both of them. Does anybody think they have it? Because this is the one where we don't flip them. So it's still the P, so it's still the hypothesis first, but the conclusion second. But we have to negate the hypothesis, I believe, right? It says on your sheet. By negating the hypothesis. So what's the negation of the hypothesis? What would that statement be? If my hypothesis is I do not win, well, we already did it. We negated the hypothesis right there. We already have what we need. So I would use the negated hypothesis. So that would be if I do not win. So again, it looks like this. If I do not, that's supposed to be a squiggly thing in front of P. So this means I'm negating the hypothesis. Well, the hypothesis was I win. So I'm going to say if I do not win, but I don't change the I don't change the Q. The Q is still the same. So the conclusion is you don't lose. I have to erase that. So again, the inverse means I negate the hypothesis, still the same order, still the hypothesis and the conclusion. So I negate this. Well, if that was I win, I need to do I do not win. So if I do not win, and then I just write the same conclusion. You don't lose. So now we do everything. We flip the order, we negate both of them. So what would the contra, that actually, I think the contrapos is one of the easiest ones. You do everything to it. Flip the order and negate both of them, which we've already negated both of them. So you can really use what we already did. So now, Stefan, can you do that one?
If you don't lose.
Perfect.
If you don't lose, then you don't win.
I do not win. Yeah, so that would be the contrapositive. If you don't lose, because now I'm reversing and putting the negated conclusion first, which we already did. So if you, actually it would be if you do lose. Did you say if you don't lose or if you do? Yeah, it would actually be if you do lose. We're negating the original conclusion, which is you don't lose. So if you do lose, if you're not getting all of this, you got a lot of practice to do before Thursday. If you do lose, and again, now I use the negated hypothesis, then I do not win. So again, we negated both of them and we flipped the order. So you shouldn't have either of these in your final product because they both got changed. Do I have I win? I don't have I win. Do I have you don't lose? I don't have you don't lose. So you should never have those two original things in a contrapositive. You're changing both of them as well as changing the order of them. All right, so go. You got a lot of practice to do between now and Thursday. Because remember, all this stuff's on Thursday still too. So you got all that stuff to know, which I told you last week. We were done practicing, so I hope you used last week to practice that. Some of you did, some of you didn't. And then you've got to now add in the IXLs for that, which I'm about to put on the board. I've already recommended them in there for you, but I'll bring it up. Anybody still writing this? So yeah, go ahead. That took longer than I thought. But IXL, where is IXL? There. So here are all the IXLs with the codes and everything. You may want to take a picture of it real quick since they're not up on the board, because I wanted to leave those up on the board since we'll still practice those on Thursday, some of you. So those are the new IXLs. As far as the order goes, I don't really, wait, I think there's, why is that in a different order? Huh. I don't know. All right. So you may want to take a picture of that real quick. You've got about 30 minutes today, and then maybe only about 30 minutes on Thursday. You're going to need to do some stuff on your own. You don't, I don't know that you're going to do great on this next quiz. There's going to be a lot on there, and I think for some of you, time will also be a factor. If you don't really have this down, you're going to struggle to get through the whole quiz, which obviously is going to probably not be great for grading. You are really excited to be an IXL, aren't you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you guys want to do it over here, I had to leave, but I never did move it over to the right. You have, although really there's not much you have to write up for this stuff. But I mean, if you still want to get together in a group, that's fine. You could just, I don't care if you just use one. If you guys want to just use one IXL for you and another person or something like that, and just talk about it together, that's fine. There's no score you're going to have to get to. So if that helps you to talk through it with somebody, but just if you're doing that, make sure you work. It's up to you guys to be able to do it individually. Did you? Well, do you need one? Like, are you going to use, what do you need a word for? There's nothing to write.
For my IXL.
There's nothing to write. You're going to write on the board.
It's more.
Go, go, go. I did used to have kids that loved doing whiteboards. I used to let them teach something. Not so much this year. Everybody's too scared. Make sure you're in IXL working. Do not be playing around on your phone. I'll be checking in about 5 minutes. Give you a few minutes because I can't see it until you answer one question. Somebody take their spot. No? Yeah. Oh, well, now what I could do is if this would work better. Have one of these. Take that somewhere somehow. I don't know how that would help you, but if it would, you do that. Oh, somebody make a decision. Okay.
Where do you want to put it? It's fine, we can just work on the wall.
Here, I'm gonna. Oh, actually.
What color does it stay?
This is back. Here, we're gonna try. I've done it before and actually. Otherwise, so in theory, this would work. In practice, it's not, but I think that's just somebody didn't do what I did. I tried this one time. Do you see? You can't see it. So these are frameable markers that are erasable.